was a good guess.
On that joyful note, gotta love dieting. The approach to take to performance anxiety is not dieting. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times we get angry at ourselves for being nervous. We try to not be nervous, right? We try to do everything we can to calm ourselves down. Like, it's not gonna work. Like, it's like a pointless thing to do. Don't try and cut down on anxiety. It's just gonna give you more anxiety. It's like when you're cutting out food, you're just hungrier all of the time. It's kind of the same thing. So the biggest thing in sort of combating your anxiety and performing, and Marie wrote the sweetest email of like, my many years of experience and tips and tricks. I'm like turning 27, okay? So, but just being a performer, my whole career is constant auditions and constant performances, and Antoinette knows this, probably has more experience than I do, but I know that me being such a high energy person to begin with, every single second of my life, when I get anxious, I get anxious, super judgmental, super hard on myself, and I feel it very physically. And there is a lot of me to feel physically. I have 6 feet of arms that start shaking, which is a big problem when you're a violinist. And, you know, I don't know how much you guys might know of the classical world, but what I will say is many people, not all, but many people who are in the top tiers of the classical world, particularly those who are performing in orchestras, end up developing drug and alcohol abuse issues to deal with the anxiety. You know, what we're doing when we're playing a string instrument, we're pushing our bodies physically to the extent of what they're capable of, in many ways like an Olympic athlete would. I know it sounds like this crazy thing because you go and you see these 4-year-olds, you know, playing the freaking Vivaldi concertos, and you're like, oh, well, if a 4-year-old can do it, right? But, you know, I say this a lot, but violin is very much an anti-human instrument, right? Everyone's violin. Is anyone viola? I mean, viola is the same except heavier. You know, cello is a little bit more intuitive because it works with gravity rather against. So everything is happening in your body when you're playing. It doesn't matter what level you're at. It doesn't matter if you just picked up the thing 2 months ago or whether you've been playing as long as me or Antoinette has. You know, every single time you pick up the instrument, you're going to be pushing your body to the absolute limits of what it knows how to do. Because this is not something that we have ancestral knowledge of in our bodies, right? This is something that each of us individually has to teach our bodies how to do. So just when you're going into it, when you're getting ready, even every single day when you're picking up your instrument and being hard on yourself and judging yourself for all of these things, just remind yourself that you're doing something completely innovative that is extremely rare for anybody to do. There are very few things that light up our brains in the way that playing a violin or a viola do. So that's step 1, okay? Just know, it doesn't matter, you're gonna be at the extent of your limit. Then on top of that, when you know you're gonna be playing for somebody, it's all gonna come in at once. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how much you prepare. It doesn't matter how many breathing exercises you do. It doesn't matter if you went to a hot yoga class that morning. There's nothing you can do to stop the fact that anxiety is gonna hit you. And it's gonna affect how you're playing. And it's gonna affect your mental state. When I was training to be an actor, they used to have us like run around the block before we would do our scenes or our monologues to simulate the experience of having to perform when your heart's racing, right? So sometimes when I'm preparing for something difficult with violin, a difficult passage, in my room, I'm doing jumping jacks for like 5 minutes just to get me to that point where I'm like shaking so I can feel at least what it's gonna be like when I'm there and trying to play this crazy thing, right? So it's going to happen, and it's going to affect the way you're playing. You're going to hear it, especially in your bow arm. That's the place that it's going to come through. You know, your left hand, if you get it set up in a good spot, if you're comfortable with the material, left hand pretty consistently isn't going to let you down. If you're playing a crazy fast passage, you're going to slip up a few notes here and there. You might struggle with some intonation stuff because anxiety totally distorts our interpretation of everything, right? But the real problem is going to be your bow arm. So if you know that going into it, the way to fight the bounce is to, this is going to sound horrible. The way to fight the bounce is to not fight the bounce, right? Just accept that it's happening, right? It's coming from this. It's literally this, which is amplified by this whole huge thing, right? It's like we have a lever, right? If your hand's doing this, well, your bow is going to be going up and down like this over here. It's going to happen. All you can do is remember that gravity's there on your side. Let gravity help you, and then work against gravity by not dropping your elbow. This is something that I talk about a lot, but your elbow is your biggest tool in sort of like reclaiming your control over the bow. So when I feel my bow bouncing a lot, sometimes I actually even lift my elbow. Usually you say never above the level of the wrist. Sometimes when I'm having a lot of trouble though, I do lift my elbow up above, because then suddenly I have gravity rather than when we're here, gravity's pulling on our elbow and wrist evenly. That's the ideal. But then a lot of the times our elbow's here, so gravity's pulling this way. If I'm going here, gravity's going to help me actually get into the string a little bit more. So even though I might be shaky, because gravity is having now this pulling action, sometimes it helps you regain that contact with the string. And once you find that, once your body feels it again, and like you are sort of like, oh no, okay, I don't sound horrible, then you can sort of like relax into your normal playing position. So that's something that I fall back on sometimes. Another thing that I do, which is good and bad, is I find that when I'm nervous, I really want to grip hard in my right and my left hand, right? So I try to really think about almost bowing completely with my fingers. It takes a lot of time to get comfortable using your fingers in your bow hold. It takes about, I would say, at least 5 years of playing until that becomes a real part of it, right? But if you even just have that imagery in your head of it's not your arm going, it's not your wrist, it's like your whole arm is this little like jellyfish, like kind of floating around up and down with the bow in your hand, right? Sometimes just sort of that like impetus of the idea of that movement there just adds this tiny touch of relaxation. Imagery is a huge part of being able to like get your body to listen to you. We don't have control over our bodies. What we do is we send ideas and signals to the back of our brain, and then our brain decides what it wants to do with that, right? When we say, okay, take 2 steps forward, there are a million different ways that we could do that. And usually it doesn't matter. But with violin, everything is so specific and so small that even though there are a million different ways that we can extend our arm, we're looking for one very, very specific one. And you know, you can go and you can study the ligaments and the little muscles and the this and that. And I think that the perfect balance is going to be like this. It never works because for some reason I keep trying it and then I'm proved again that it doesn't work. So what helps a lot more are things like this imagery. And fundamentally, when you're playing music as music, what are you doing but telling these stories you've come up with in your head, and your body starts to respond to that, and then the sound starts telling that story too. So things like this, like the idea of the jellyfish in your bow, like I don't know, I just see them like, ooh, you know, yeah. Like that is really what I come back to when I need to release my bow hand. Same thing with the elbow. I think I must have been in like 3rd or 4th grade. And I learned this from teaching kids before teaching adults, as most teachers do, that you literally have to explain everything as a story or it doesn't make sense, right? Okay, well, maybe not for kids. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a different thing. Probably a different thing. I don't think that there are many 5-year-olds learning chemistry, though. But so I will never forget. This was my first teacher told me. Imagine you have. I think I've said this to you, Jeff. Like, imagine you have this big poof of just like fluffy cotton candy that is just floating in the air. It's like a little, like one of the, like, you know, I always saw the cartoon cloud in my head, you know, with the little spirals, you know, and it's just floating here. It's just floating here. And there's nothing that you can do to press it down because it just exists. And while you're playing, you're just resting your elbow on this little cotton candy cloud here, right? You're not holding your arm up. It's like you're dropping your elbow down and it's just landing very gently on this big cloud of cotton candy, right? And that truly is the image in my head when I'm playing. I'm seeing this sort of cloud float up, float down. So when I'm like out of my mind, I always come back to these images I have, because me saying to myself, drop your elbow, raise your elbow, let go of your bow, blah, 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 none of it works, right? You just have to sort of see this thing in your head. So here's the other thing, breathing. We all hold our breath all the time. I'm always yelling. I'm always yelling at everybody for everything, but I'm always yelling at people to breathe. I'm looking at him because he's my student. He knows very well.
I'm not that conscious of it anymore.
Yeah. So here's the thing. In your practice, oh God, every time I say that, I just feel like I sound like an annoying yoga instructor. In your practice. I just can't stand yoga. But incorporate breathing into specific spots in your music, actually, almost as if like, you know, it becomes a bowing that you have to do, right? And this is why I think it's great that you guys are all playing together. And I think some of you are starting to explore like chamber music, things like this. That's how musicians communicate with each other. In an orchestra, a soloist, if you listen to the great recordings, you can hear them sniffing very loudly. Have you guys heard this in different recordings? Yeah, especially big solo violinists. If you listen in their cadenzas, you'll hear like, it's so funny. It's like that sort of, right? The breathing is how you're communicating with other musicians in an orchestra, in a playing setting, right? If you're in a chamber music group, that was the first thing that we learned about cueing. Cueing, when I say that, in case you don't know, it means like sort of when a conductor is like, before the first downbeat. You're sort of setting the rhythm very quickly and letting people know when you're gonna come in, so you can all come in together, right? So in chamber music, we all cue with breath. That's how we stay together, right? Like I remember I was playing one chamber music piece where we all came in on 2, the second beat of every measure. It was in 4/4, I think. So we would be there. Okay. And you'll see this if you've seen chamber musicians. They're like about to like fall into each other, and they're here, and so we all sniff on the 1 and lift up in the air, and then we drop down on the 2, and we had to do this a few times in a row. And you could tell if somebody wasn't sniffing, we were all off, right? So it was
A t-shirt says, let's co-regulate together. It is very good.
Pretty much, yeah. So with the sniffing, you're really, what you're doing is you're communicating with the back of your brain and with your instrument. One of the things that I find the best about playing violin as I'm going and like, I'm learning how to sing right now, like better. You know, I'm terrified of singing in public and I never understood why. And I think I realized finally, it's because when you sing, you're completely alone. When you're playing violin, you're not. You're a part of a team. You're a part of your team. Like your instrument cannot make this sound without you. You can't make this sound without this instrument. And if somebody else picked up the instrument, it would not make the same sound, right? It is a unique thing. It's teamwork. So when you're breathing, it's about communicating with your instrument and communicating with that part in the back of your brain that's making the decisions. So breathing from the start in your practice is really important. So picking places where you want to breathe usually are going to be things like pickups. Pickups is the beat before your first note. So that is so essential. A lot of times we come in and our first note, we haven't breathed for like 25 seconds, right? We're like, and they're like, you know, right in the middle of our note, okay? So there's sort of a procedure that I follow genuinely every single time before I play. And I highly encourage all of you to do it. The first thing that I like to do is, well, first off, everybody has different philosophies about this, but I will go back to my philosophy around bowing, which, you know, you only really do in a classical setting. I don't play a lot of classical music these days, but I take sort of the philosophy with me.
I never even thought about that. That's so true.
What?
That's so true. I never even thought about it.
The philosophy of
No, you only bow in classical music.
You only do, yeah. But so basically, I'll tell you another story. Why not? We're just eating some cake. So when I was little, I was as dynamic of a tiny human as I am now, and had a lot of fire in me. And I still have the video. I was going through my computer. I saw it the other day. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is on camera. I had this wonderful teacher when I was like in late lower school, early middle school, who, this was like when you start seeing a teacher who like, okay, now you're taking this seriously. Like this is like, you know, you're not just, oh, I'm learning violin. No, you're like pre-professional, blah, 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 blah. So she would rent out for us once a year this gorgeous like recital space with the stained glass and hardwood floors, and like it's just beautiful and very intimidating for like a 10-year-old. And I remember she, you know, we worked with a accompanist, and you know, you go out there and the accompanist is there and you've got all these people looking at you, and I was not 6 feet tall at that time, and so things were very scary. Things are much less scary now that I'm 6 feet tall. And I went out there and it was my first time really playing in a space like this all alone. Well, that was my error in my thinking, is I wasn't alone. There was a pianist right behind me, and then there was my violin. But I'm like, oh, I'm all alone, and I messed up so badly. I totally messed up. I didn't mess up. I watched the video. I did fine. You know, I was so bad. So I get to the end of it and I put my violin on my thing. And then, you know, you're always supposed to acknowledge the accompanist. So I go, and I go here. And then I storm off the stage. And my teacher grabbed me by the shoulders, spun me around, and she's like in my, you know how like when you're little and like old grown-ups do this to you where they're holding you and they're like talking in your ear. It's the most terrifying thing of all time. So she's there like in my ear and she's like, you go back out there and you bow. You are not bowing for yourself. You're bowing to thank everybody who just listened to you. It doesn't matter how you did. You're saying, thanks for listening. You especially better bow if you think you did terribly, because they did not boo you, right? So she sent me back out, and then I did my bow, and now it was really embarrassing. And then I went off. And since then, I have been like, I'm so strict about bowing. And, you know, bowing do we all do this, the whole when you're little, they play notes for you. It's dum, bum, like very seriously. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I never had that.
Oh my gosh. And so, that my philosophy on that has evolved over time, but it's still there, right? The first thing you want to do is, acknowledge the audience the second that you get out there, because it can feel very isolating. It can very much feel like you and then this imaginary horde of humans, right? Saturday is going to be great because it's a mini concert. We're just right here. We all know each other. I don't think there are any guests coming,
Yes, allowed.
right? It's just us, right? So this is the perfect place to practice this. You're just coming up. These are your friends. These are people you know. These are people who maybe you've been shit talking with other people about, okay?
Not in my book.
Yeah, I'm just saying, right? This is not, a panel of auditioners going, oh, well, I don't like that outfit,
That's true.
So first thing, before you even start thinking about yourself, is think about who you're playing for and what that means to you. And how cool is it that you get to play in front of anybody at all, right? You know that these people are here for it, here for the whole thing, here for your whole performance, right? I think you can guarantee that the people in this room are not going to start throwing things in your face, and everyone is just as nervous as you are, right? So first thing, just have a moment with your audience. That's actually why I love the bow, because it gives you an excuse when you're coming out. If you're not bowing, it's just like, oh, okay, hi, music on the stand, right? With the bow, it's all about presenting yourself. So you have the moment to be here and actually see everybody's faces and say, oh, these are people, these are individual people. Okay, and a little moment to breathe. So even if you're not a bower, even in all of my work that I do now, which is not classical, so we don't bow, I find a way to incorporate something for me that feels like that before the performance. It's why whenever you see like an indie gig, a rock gig, a lot of times they'll either start, you'll like start by hearing the music and then the people will show up, or they come out and they talk to the audience first, right? It's about trying to ease into that space and that connection. So that's a really, really important part. Once you do that, okay, you sort of like, all right, we're good. I see what's going on here. Cool. We're all in it together. You can take command of the space by taking as much time as you want. And that should be an uncomfortable amount of time. There's sort of because time is going to move much faster for you than you think it is. There's like a moment when things go, I think we talked about this, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so all right, you acknowledge the audience, you go, and what I like to do is, if my music is in front of me, I like to take the time to start hearing it in my head. And I'll go through a few lines of just hearing it in my head. And everyone's gonna sit silently and wait for you. They're not in a hurry, okay? Now this is also really important because this is when you're gonna find your tempo that you're gonna start in. And slowly in the process of this silence, you can already feel the shift that has just happened in the past few seconds, right? There's a calm that settles here, and slowly the energy comes this way, and the focus comes this way. And you start creating the environment for your performance before you even begin. Because this is here now in your head, you know what you're going to be playing, and you've now taken command of the space. The power is now in you, not in everybody else. If you come out right away and jump right into playing, the power, the attention is still in whoever just played or whoever just spoke. So that time when you're like, oh, I should really just get going, is actually super, super important for you to suddenly feel that you're in the position of power in that situation. Super duper important. Then I like to take a couple of seconds to make sure I'm really comfortable in my playing. You'll see me whenever I perform, I'm constantly just I'm just like readjust. I do it in the middle of a piece, like all the time. I'm constantly adjusting. Sometimes I have some false starts. Sometimes I'm about to start. No, we're gonna try that again. You know what I mean? Yeah. So once I'm finally here, okay, I'm good. Just close my eyes a few times, hear it in my head. Just take a couple deep breaths. Think about the hard parts coming up, right? Okay. Then I have the tempo going in my head, you know, and I sniff on the beat before I play. So, right? That way you're starting on a sigh, right? That way the energy is coming out of you with relief rather than, yeah. So once you get to that point, you're going to be fine. If you do all of that, you're going to be fine. The only other thing to think of once you start playing is messing up. So, like I said earlier, you can't try and not make yourself nervous. You also can't make yourself not mess up. I'm a very imperfect player. Antoinette is a gorgeous technical player, right? I'm not. I'm really, really not. I love the tone, I love the phrasing. The notes themselves get pretty muddled with me a lot of the time. But most people don't seem to notice.
I don't notice.
Oh, I thought you just said I noticed. I was like, yes, okay. Well, because I've had to practice a lot not making a face when I mess up. So back when I was a very angry little child who stormed off the stage, I would make a huge, horrible face every time I messed up.
Oh, right. Didn't give it away.
Right? Exactly.
Usually they don't know.
Usually they don't know. And a lot of times the things that you're hearing aren't even a problem. You have to remember we're so close to our instrument. Things that we're hearing right there may not even be audible from 2 feet away, let alone, auditorium, So it takes practice. And I think that starts in the practice room. When you're messing up, you have to change your philosophy around mistakes. So the way I was able to do it, and unfortunately this has turned into its own habit, which I still struggle to get rid of, but just because I'm a very reactive person, I was like, I can't not react. For some reason, it's just not in me to just keep it cool, getting better at it. But so I turned this into, I started laughing whenever I started messing up, or I would smile, and you know me, I mean, I guess you don't see me with my mask off much, but I have a very big cheese of a smile. And so then transition from the videos of me when I was little to now my videos in high school. When I mess up because I'm like here with my I've got my serious violin face. Right? But that was the best thing that I could have done because you know how they say when you're sad, if you just start smiling, maybe you'll trick yourself into being happy. That sort of made me be better at letting go of my mistakes and moving on because it became a funny thing that happened, right? Sometimes these noises that our instrument make are freaking hysterical. Very genuinely, the mistakes, when we make a mistake on violin, it is really funny, the noise that it makes. It's I sometimes want to capture it and make it a little one of into a TikTok reel.
That's so mean.
Oh my gosh, it was mortifying, but also hysterical. I was practicing this part in Shostakovich. And do you guys know who Shostakovich is? He's one of the first contemporary composers. And his stuff is not supposed to be pretty. It's not supposed to be cute, right? And I was practicing this excerpt. And Antoinette walks through the door. And she goes like this. She thought that my playing was the door squeaking. point, she's like, oh. So it's like, yeah, it's really funny sometimes the sounds that come out of it. So you have to know that it's not like your failure as a musician. It's not your failure as a human. Come back to this idea that you're doing something absolutely insane that your body is not even supposed to be doing in the first place. When it does stuff like this, it's not the end of the world. It's kind of hysterical, right? Know you're gonna mess up and know that it's not a big deal. And it just adds a little bit of character. And the real perseverance is being able to just to get through it. You're gonna rush a lot. You're gonna lose your spot in the music, right? When that happens, just remember, you have this power now, right? If you take that time at the beginning, you have that power. You have the power to stop, take a moment to breathe, pick the section you want to start from, and go from there. That is not a big deal. Really, really not a big deal. People do it in professional auditions all the time, right? And people on panels of these auditions understand, they don't care. They understand of the nerves, right? So you have the power to do that as well. You have the power to skip sections if you want to skip a section, right? Yeah.
I think I had I had a Christmas Eve gig or something.
Mm-hmm.
Family hired me to come to their house, and they're like, "Do you have the little drummer boy?" And I was like, "I guess, but it sucks on violin." I was like, "Yeah." So like, I picked like one part.
Yeah.
And I was like, "I'm not playing this middle part. No, they're not getting that.
Yeah.
It's just gonna sound terrible."
And they didn't know.
They didn't know.
They didn't know. You have the power to do that. So just remember, the power is in your court so long as you give yourself the chance to take it from the room when you get up there. You know? Then when you're done, one more thing. Only thing anyone's gonna remember is the first and the last note. Right? So make your first note pretty, make your last note pretty. Everything in between is just jelly, right? Okay? You know? A lot of times we throw away the last note. We throw away the last note. If you've seen any videos ever of a violinist, at the end, what do they do consistently? Freeze frame. Do you know what I mean? They've got that bow up in the air. They're still here, right? And then there's the silence or the applause. There's a breath. And then after the very last little ring has entered out into the universe, okay, now I can relax. This is important. If anyone has ever been made to play any sports in gym, because I believe that must be, since that's my case, that must be the only time people play sports. It's the follow through. It's the follow through. The tennis racket, the baseball bat, the golf club, right? What's the number one thing that they say? Don't stop once you've hit the ball, right? The way you follow through is really
the same.
what?
Breaking boards is the same.
Oh yes, because you do karate and stuff, right? Yeah, you got to go below, past it. Yeah. Again, it's this imagery thing that we're sending to our brain, the jellyfish, the cloud. The follow through is part of that. If you're playing your last note and you're just, the sound is not going to be there. Mm-hmm. You have to follow through on that note. And then just let the air take it. Just sort of feel like suddenly you're underwater. That's sort of, I think that's kind of how I feel when I finish playing. Right? And then you can let it hit. Give yourself a few seconds. Because it's like an emotional thing. And then you can let go of it. And then you can go and cry and have a nervous breakdown. Okay. And then come back to the audience, look them in the eye, and take a bow if you're up for it. If not, do something. Do something. Just literally anything. Don't just be like, you know, okay, whatever, great, cool, I suck, great, you know. Anything at all, because they did just you went on a journey together. You know, you can't just like life of Pyatt and be like, peace out, tiger, you know. It's like you just went on a journey together with this audience. So anyways, that's that. Oh my gosh, it's already 9:30. Well, you know me, I can talk forever. Well, let's go back to getting prepared before performance. Talked a little bit about what starts in the practice room, and that starts with your attitude around your mistakes and how you're dealing with your mistakes, how you're working your mistakes. So working your mistakes is a lot more than just playing the thing over and over and over again until you get it right, right? Slow it down, take it note by note, take it in little chunks, take it. Usually when there is a huge section that's causing you a problem, the real issue is the one note that is tripping you up and then throwing everything after it off, right? I love it. Hey, good thing you know it, right? Good thing, right? Yeah, you know it. So knowing where your problems are going to start is huge, because then you can start thinking about attacking them. You also know when you're going to start getting nervous and when you might have to just, do a little bit of slurpy airbo for a measure and then I'm back, Yeah, this is not something I recommend in real life, but there comes a time in the middle of a performance when you need an exit strategy. So that's that. Then
You didn't hear it
breathing.
from us.
What?
You didn't hear it from us.
I mean, you definitely heard it from me.
Heard it from her, guys. Anyone asks?
From me. See, okay, you can tell this is the difference. Classical musician, not a classical musician. But breathing is the other thing that we talked about. Most important is breathing at the beginning of the piece, right? Then there's breathing that comes in at if you have any tempo changes, if you have any key changes, any big changes, changes in mood, changes in tone. There's usually at least minimum in every piece a main theme, the exposition, which sometimes goes into a minor if you're starting in a major, or goes into a major if you're starting in minor, and then it comes back home to the main theme.
Can you explain exposition?
Exposition is basically a new theme that's kind of a variation, but also something different. It's sort of the standard structure of every song, of every piece, and then it just gets more elaborate on top of that, right? So I really find myself breathing a lot at every change in the music, right? So for example, Twinkle Twinkle. Twinkle Twinkle is the easiest example of that, right? Dum bum 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 ba da 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 dum. Yum ba dum ba dum ba dum bum ba dum ba dum ba dum. Bum ba dum ba dum ba dum bum ba dum ba dum ba dum. Do you hear it? Right. So while I'm playing, as this new section's coming up, I have a little breath coming in to help me it almost just sort of gives you that little push, that little energy, and a little bit of a signal that, okay, we're transitioning into something else. And in a way, it almost acts like the dashes in a telephone number, right? When you know about this, when they were figuring out how to organize the telephone numbers, we're not very good at however many numbers, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's 10 numbers in our phone numbers, sometimes 11. And they found in these studies that we can't remember 11 numbers in a row. So they decided, well, we can very easily remember a grouping of 3 we think of as 1, a grouping of 3 we think of as 1, and a grouping of 4 we think of as 1. So really we're only remembering 3 numbers, right? That's sort of what the breath does. It's breaking it up for us. So rather than feeling like this big marathon, it's like, and now we're moving into the next section, right? So that's another thing to think about in the practice room. Then, this is sort of my schedule when I'm preparing for a performance. There is nothing that you can do the day before or the day of that is going to make your playing any better. So this is what I do. I'll practice like mad up until 2 days before. The day before the performance, I do not touch my violin. This is a bold move. I don't think that a lot of people do this, but I force myself to not touch it, because at that point, the only reason that I'm picking up my violin is because I'm nervous. And I'm afraid that, well, I was able to do it 5 minutes ago, but am I still able to do it now? Or it's 5 minutes later, can I still do it now? Yeah. Oh, it's been 3 hours, but can I still do it now? Right? Highway to hell. In the morning, I will not run through the whole thing. If it's a short piece, do it, okay? Usually what I'm playing is pretty long. What I do is, and this is how you should start all your practice sections, go right to the hard parts. Don't play through right away, go right to the hard parts. So I'll run the difficult sections and I'll work them a little bit. And then I will not let myself play it through. I will have my tea and a treat. I will bring water and tea with me often. And then the anxiety turns into excitement. Because if you give yourself that space to, okay, you've done the preparation, but then you've given yourself some time away from it, it actually becomes kind of exciting because it's fresh, it's new, it's like outside of your normal practice regimen. There's a difference between, oh, I forgot to practice today and I am not touching my violin today, right? So that then you're actually kind of edging to go. Like you're really excited to like, oh, I can't wait to pick up my violin. You know, and when you've got a little bit of excitement mixed in with the anxiety, it makes the anxiety much more digestible. Yes.
So wait, so you said you don't touch the violin the day before, but you will in the morning.
I'll warm up.
Right.
I'll warm up.
That was my question.
Yeah, I'll get in tune and I'll work the difficult sections, but I won't play it through. I will not play it through. I try not to even play like a whole section through. Really, I like cut myself off after a few measures because I want to leave that freshness there. I want to leave that flow there. And you know, if you let yourself like, I just want to go through one time, you're never gonna stop. Like you're just gonna like keep playing it over and over.
Right.
Every time it's gonna get worse.
Yeah.
It's gonna get worse every time you play it.
Every mistake is gonna make you more.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Yeah, and you're gonna fatigue yourself and all of that. So that's sort of my regime. My dad is, we're very close, but he can be pretty blunt. I guess I know where I get it from then. But he has done this on so many occasions. I have told him on so many times, Dad, you cannot say that to me. So many times after a performance, he'll say, wow, Laura, that was great. I heard you practicing and I thought I shouldn't even go because you sound so bad. He's done it more than one time, at least 5 times. I'm like, Dad, how many times do I have to explain to you? Practicing, the point of practicing is not to sound good. Like that's not the point. So what was happening was I would be at home practicing the morning of. I would be playing through the hard sections. And you know what it's like when you're playing a hard section. You know, so he had been listening to this all morning, okay? And he says things like I see texts to my brother like, oh, he shows me afterwards, man, listening to Laura, she's in bad shape. You know, stuff like this, right? And then I don't know, every single time he's floored that after all this money he's invested in my lessons, I actually know how to play the thing. So keep that in mind. You're not supposed to sound good when you're practicing. You're not supposed to sound good the morning of. That's not the point. And it's hard. It's hard in New York. It's really hard. It was so much easier in Pennsylvania when there was like just a yard and a few cats listening to me play, you know? I mean, I've lived here for 5 years now, and I get so nervous playing my apartment. I mean, actual professional musician.
I have a solution.
Yeah.
To that. So my roommates are all a band, and they play twice a week at least, and then when they have shows, they play more. So they make and sometimes they do that thing or like da da da.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah.
And it's a band, so there's more of them and they're louder. So in practicing. It's like one very bad violin in this apartment. These people have heard worse.
You know what? It's so true though. Like when because I play in a couple bands, and it's so much easier when you're with other people.
Right.
It's
And,
much
like, I
easier.
don't play with them.
Well, no, but they're like there.
Right, and they've played their thing, and then I go like, should I, yeah, like the one of them has like a cajon and he's drumming on the floor, like, no,
It's like the
fine.
vibrations
Like,
through. Yeah, you're good.
I'm good.
You're good. Yeah.
That's the solution. Get yourself a band that'll play in your
It'll
space.
play
and
for
get
you.
everybody used to the noise.
So that
of
then
it.
everyone is relieved when you start playing.
Like,
I like it. I'm down with that. Yes. So anyways, thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Can I just tell you one quick thing about that, because I perform too.
Please.
But not
He's
sort of
excellent.
as a comedian.
I saw him. He's really good, guys.
But one of the things that I do is and I need to do this more with violin, I shake myself out completely backstage, because there's this tension that, builds up because you're going out there. And I also, generally, and I don't know if you can apply this to violin, I like to be more tired than more awake, because when you're tired, you're much more willing to just go with the flow. You're not keyed up, and I'm very careful with caffeine. Too much caffeine and they get kind of bitchy, which is not funny. But that,
Yeah.
some of those things
There's a
I
fine
like.
line.
Yeah.
There's a fine line. I think because, as much as it is a mental game, I think the fatigue helps with the mental stress. But because violin is so physical, I know sometimes when I'm like feeling pretty tired and I go to play, just nothing goes right. Just because these small differences in how we're holding the instrument makes an enormous effect on everything, just because violin is so small. So I think to a degree, yes, don't get yourself like jacked up the morning of, don't take a 5-hour energy, no double espressos. There is a thing, sometimes people think that it's easier to like have a drink before, which is fine. I'm very against it. I don't think it's a good idea, because I'm not saying this like as like, oh well, yeah, don't be an alcoholic, but I'm saying like normal people, we drink socially a lot of times. Anything that you do is sort of like a stress relief that's like on that borderline zone, like smoking cigarettes or smoking pot or drinking alcohol, I really would stay away from it before you're gonna play for other people. No matter how it makes you feel, it does affect your memory. And it doesn't matter if you gave the best performance of your life or the worst performance of your life. When you go home, you're gonna be going over everything in your head until the end of time. And you're never gonna know how you really did, right? It's already hard enough to deal with the anxiety of performing. So like, trust yourself enough, give yourself enough of the benefit of the doubt to go into it like clear-minded, clear-headed. Stay away from any of those sort of like mind-altering things, even though many people do it. It's just, when you think about why you're playing, why, you're all adults who chose to pick up the instrument. That's literally what you're here for, is to be able to get up in front of people and play. So let you be you when you do that. Not that that's something I think I have to mention here, but like sometimes people think, oh, I'll like take a shot of something before I go on. And like, yeah, but like even so, it's this is an important thing for you to do as a person. So you can walk that line of like, I want to stay up all night, so I'm tired, or like, I want to get like extra sleep or whatever. But I think more important than anything is don't obsess over it, is what I would say.
I think it's a great takeaway that like, the anxiety's gonna happen. There's no question.
It is.
And like the question is, okay, so now you're gonna do things or find things to do to live with that, but it does not, like, there's a storm coming. I mean, like, it's coming. Like, what are you gonna do to prepare? What's the best thing you can do, you know? So I think it's just great to acknowledge that. Okay, you know, how do you live around that or with that?
Yeah, don't block off like your whole day. Do things beforehand.
Wait, what?
Like before your performance, sometimes people are like, okay, I've got to be ready for my performance. So I'm like canceling my plans. No, do all the plans. Just give yourself an hour, right? That's a mistake I made because then you spend all day, I know, just freaking out and like trying to watch TV, but not really watching TV, or like reading a thing in a book. And then you like, I've read this 15 times. I have no idea what it says. So just try as much as you can, live your normal life, and then give yourself just that little bit of time to warm up. Don't warm up right before. Warm up sometime in like a few hours before, and then take a break. Then right before your performance, tune up. Don't be this person. Don't be the pitsing person who's there while other people are playing, trying to play your thing, right? Not gonna help. And yeah, just find a way to have fun. Biggest thing I would say, moral of the story is find your procedure for when you get here. That's the biggest thing. Did you try it? Did it help?
A few months ago I went to Israel to see my parents, and I was very excited because I was going to play this weekend. I was going to play to them as like, because they're very judgy and like, oh, you're wasting money on this stuff. Why are you wasting money on it? Blah blah blah. And I wanted to show them like, here's me connecting with my heritage. And Laura gave me a ton of really good advice. And in the end, I was like, okay, I don't want to play for them the first night. I want to like get used to the space, like maybe practice then the night before, like just a little bit, just like not. And then it turned out that while I had been practicing, they were in the living room and they had turned off the TV and they were just sitting there listening to me while I was practicing. And I was like, you know what? That was your show. That's it.
You know what? That's very sweet.
No, it made me very, very nervous.
Yes, but
like that was not that. No, it was supposed to be like, okay, I was supposed to do all the things that you said. Take a breath, be ready, be in control. But I had none of that because I was just doing the thing, which you do when you're working out a difficult thing. And no.
Did they say anything?
My mom's like, yeah, you play very well, and I'm like, I do not play very well. You heard me.
Okay, wait. She would not have said that if she didn't mean it.
Yes,
She would have said that.
Yeah,
She would have said.
She would have told you if you were allowed to.
No, she would not have said. She would not have said anything. Either way, like either way, she would say you're playing beautifully. My dad, either way, would not say anything. Whether I was like a miracle or like horrible, my dad would say nothing.
So now you get to show them.
Yes, yeah, maybe some people.
Or they can bring them to the concert. Like, not this one, obviously, but me.
But somebody can take the video. I'll send them the video.
Yes. Oh, I'm so proud.
No, it didn't really happen.
I have to say, I actually do agree with this. I get really paranoid about people listening, like outside the door.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you something horrible. In high school, was very competitive, and I went to a boarding school, so we were like, it's like you're like constantly at each other's throats, like literally night and day. And I was like the top violinist in my grade. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm making it, I'm doing well, right? I went to a music department with the practice rooms, right? And then my second year, this kid comes in, Sam Hahn. Never forget. Has my teacher, and our lessons were back to back. And so I would always be hearing him. I'd be in the practice room next door and I could hear him. And I thought he was so much better than me. I was getting like so freaked out and so angry. Like, he's gonna steal my spot. He's gonna, spot in orchestra. It's like the army. There's this whole hierarchy, I'm like, he's gonna steal my teacher. I'm my teacher's favorite student. And we started like competing with each other, like through the practice rooms. And I called my brother. I said, Nicholas, He's 7 years older than me. So he was a grown up at this point. I said, just wondering, hypothetical question. If I asked you to drive to New Hampshire to break someone's arm, would you? He goes, possibly. And I was like, I went to my violin teacher. I finally had just had it. Once I heard myself say that on the phone, I'm like, okay, maybe we need to talk to somebody about this situation. So I talked to my violin teacher. I said, Mr. Rosenblum, I can't. This kid, Sam, is driving me crazy. I work so much harder than him. Why is he so much better than me? And all he said was this. He said, everyone sounds better through a practice room door. And it's really, really true. It's really true. So that's a good thing and a bad thing. So you might have just sounded better through a practice room door, right?
Yeah.
But also, like, it's just a comment on how we're all very competitive with each other to begin with. You know, I have like so many experiences of like people being in the waiting room, and like then a lesson is happening here or there, and then they come in and they're like, oh, that person's so much better than me. It's like, no, they're just also learning how to play violin. You know, it's the same thing. But I don't know how I got
noticed
on
that there's a quartet. There has been a fifth person with them once in a while, but usually it's a quartet of kids playing strings on the in the Times Square station, like when you walk in. And this has happened to me like 4 times after a violin lesson, and I'll walk by with my violin, and like, you know, the one of the violinist girl even like doffed her hat to me once, and I'm like, yeah, we're the same. Not the same. Oh my God, how are you doing this? This is not human. I don't even. Every time I see them, I get this. You know?
It's first violinist syndrome.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Everyone sort of at a certain point sorts themselves into, and I don't mean this by which part you're playing. I mean this in the mentality, sorts themselves into being either a first violinist or a second violinist. First violinists are really competitive and like want to break strings of other people's instruments, but then they're also really mean to themselves. And I'm a horrible first violinist. I have what I call first violinist syndrome. I can't even be friends with other violinists who I don't work with. We're friends, we're good, we're cool. Like people call me, they're like, hey, do you have any recommendations for violinists? I'm like, well, there are the ones I work with and there's nobody else. Nobody takes my job. We used to do the worst things. Oh my God, in youth orchestra. And again, the second violinists never did this because they're like just chill, cool people who play violin well. First violinists have like a problem. We used to, if we were angry that someone got placed a row ahead of us or like took our seat or something, if someone, especially in the front row, it would always be the people in the second row doing it to the people in the front row. They had like a solo or something in the middle, like in the actual big performance, we would just reach over and twist their peg. Really? We would do this?
Okay.
I'm not the only one. Were you not a child? See, this is the reaction of a second violinist. This is the reaction of a sane human. Oh God, that's right. Yeah, we would just, the sabotage. We would like, if someone left their bow on the stand, like when we were walking by, we would just, you know, it would like, you know, we would mix up people's music. Oh, it was a blast. We had a lot of fun.
And she's like 12 or 13, something like that. And I know she's been doing this for like at least, you know, 7 times longer than I have. So age is irrelevant here. Like I understand all of this, and still I'm seeing this girl, and she's like.
I know, it's so annoying.
And I'm looking at her like,
I'll give you my brother's phone number. You just call him Nick. Would you break someone's arm for me? Doesn't matter if they're a child.
You know, but at the same time,
my
like,
brother.
that girl wasn't born like that. She put in the work
Yes,
to
yes.
get to that
Well, maybe
point.
that's the only thing
The
that she
same way
does
that
well.
you put in the work to get to
Right.
that point. She's just ahead of you and we'll
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's
she
a
has
reasonable
no
way of
wife.
thinking.
Maybe she doesn't have a boyfriend. I mean, you know.
Jeff.
You know, how old is she?
13
Oh, well,
maybe?
she shouldn't have a boyfriend. But my point though is maybe that's all she does is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe everything else she does is terrible. Maybe she can't even make a cup of coffee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's
She
terrible.
can make a cup
That's
of
it.
coffee. What I'm
She's
saying is
terrible.
that
That's my.
We all put in,
She's terrible at
work, and we
everything
just have to go through our own.
That's the philosophy. That's the philosophy to have. Yes.
It's your
Sorry, I
own
interrupted you
journey.
as you were saying your beautiful statement. Could you please repeat it?
We have to walk our own paths, the way that we walk it.
No, I understand it in my brain.
And actually,
like,
and seeing that 13-year-old, you have to be proud of her and saying like, wow, she accomplished, she got it, she got there. I'm gonna get there. We're kind of a little later,
yeah.
It doesn't matter.
We're at the end.
I didn't even tell my best friends that I'm playing the violin because 90% of the people that I do say, they're like, well, kids play so much better than adults.
Yeah.
And then people know that I play the piano, they know you're
They
musical.
do gymnastics better than us too. I mean, at one point, the muscles, but it can still get there. It just takes a little longer. But what I'm saying is that anyway, this is our age, this is our path. We're working it.
Yeah.
When I get really good at it, then they'll all of a sudden see, and
Yeah.
it's like a surprise.
Yeah.
Because they'll be like, I didn't know you could play the violin.
Oh, yeah.
And you can do it at any age, and it does light up your brain. It
Yeah.
really does light up your brain.
It does, because when I get something right, I'm like, wow, and I'm like floating home, and sometimes when I come from work, and when you go to work, their job is to make you miserable. Because except for you guys work, but everybody else's
Our
work
job to
is,
make you miserable.
yeah, maybe we make you miserable.
No, that's not true.
I'm saying is that when I go to work, it's like, they're gonna make you miserable. They're gonna go in there smiling and you're gonna say, and then so after work, I'm thoroughly miserable because they did their job for me. And I come here and I have my 5 lesson and I feel so much
Yeah.
better, And that puts me back on the right track.
Yeah.
I can play my little thing and
Yeah.
I'm proud of myself and I go home happy. And that's why we take this class, to make ourselves happy and make the people that we love happy with the little song that we can play.
Well, and another thing to keep in mind too, because look, I've been playing since I was 4, and I still have this reaction about kids, right? What you're doing is, and not to dismiss what music means for kids, because I'm all about that. That's my background. But what you're doing is so much more meaningful in so many more ways, because kids, you just sort of throw them into things, right? Like a kid has not had 20 years to stew and think about what they want in life and what matters to them. And it's like, oh, I want to learn the violin. Okay. And then it's like, okay, to be somebody who has a life and a history and a particular set of skills in some unknown career, and then to be choosing to learn what is honestly the most challenging instrument that you can learn for your own reasons, that's really, really different than a kid just showing up to school orchestra. And I think what I've noticed just from the past year of working here is, your journey does not get the kind of support that a kid's does. You're carrying all of that weight with you on your own. I mean, with the kids, it's like, okay, and now my mommy is going to carry my case for me on my way to my lesson, and then gonna set the alarm for when I have to practice, and it's all very regimented, and it's just like they do it with doing their homework, and it's almost a different instrument if you're learning it as an adult. It has a completely different meaning. So that's what I come back to when my little baby first violinist self starts to get a little salty around the prodigy kiddos. It's a different thing. It's almost not even the same instrument that we're learning at this point.
There's something to the choice of it, and really appreciating hearing that. Part of my motive is it's therapeutic, really reminding myself, I would say this too, a breath and being embodied and giving myself the gift of choice in this is a private and beautiful experience.
It really
Like,
is.
The other day practicing Home Alone, like, we got some interesting sounds that came out of it.
Door hinges.
I'm gonna take that with me. But like, I can relate with the finishing of a note, even though it wasn't like the most amazing sounding thing, I created something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that, to me, in my personal journey, means something.
I agree. And you know, like, my work is science and technology, you know, we don't have art in our lives. Although you can find art in workflow and the way we do things, life can be artistic no matter what. But music or painting or something, that's not in a lot of our lives, so we have to find it.
Yeah.
Like, it is in your life, you are artist, but what I'm saying is that for us, being involved in art and being around
And
other people and
Yeah.
creating and playing the best we could, it's just about feeling the best, it's a feeling as
Yeah.
opposed to the 13-year-old. And maybe they're feeling it, maybe they're not, you don't know, everybody's an individual. But-
Yeah, when I was a kid, I played violin a bunch, but I didn't realize I liked it.
No.
I knew that I didn't hate it.
I think that is the
I
common
was just like,
experience
oh,
of a
keep
lot of the
playing. I
kids.
don't know.
Yeah, you just sort of do things.
I just did it, and
Yeah.
then later I was like, wait a minute, I think I actually enjoy this. Like, I'm not kidding, like, at least 10 or 12 years of playing, I didn't know I liked it. Doesn't
That
make
also
sense,
makes
right?
sense, because it does, because then you once after that, you're like, oh, this is okay, it's not too bad, and then you just kind of do it by rote, and then by the time that you're good at it, you're like, that it makes sense.
Well, also at its core, violin is just a medium for a certain type of artistic expression, right? Like kids can replicate,
Yeah.
right? But they haven't found or become themselves yet, right? So that's why I think you all, I found, have such incredibly strong individual voices, like from after you sort of get to the beginner stage, you can already hear, and I think you can attest to this, you can start to hear everybody's individual sound as the musician and the individual choices as well. So that's part of it too, I think. It's like, you can be this virtuosic, child violinist replicating somebody else's sound, but I think it's really, the professionals say that they decided when they were around 13 that they knew this was their sort of calling, and that's when they started developing their own artistic voice. For me, it was definitely, I think, around that age that I was like, well, this is definitely not my calling. But that's when I started developing, I think, my own voice, and that's when my violin started becoming my companion sort of in life. And I think that's part of what you don't get in a lot of these other careers. It's you've kind of got this ethereal voice that you can
It's
command.
like a space you entered into. Like, I want to go to that space when I hear a certain harmony. There's even just like listening to music, it's incredible. Even a dance, it's not just the technical pieces. Some people I can see play very well. I'm not moved.
Yes.
I'm not
Yes.
moved.
Sorry, I just had like a. Yeah.
There's something, like, I wanna go there, I wanna be in that
Right.
space.
Yeah, that's why I play in groups, I wanna be in it, I
Yeah,
wanna be in the music.
that's right, yeah.
I get that too, like, I don't know, a lot of you guys don't believe me, but like, when student orchestra even, either beginner or like the intermediate student orchestra, like, when I feel that moment, I want everybody to like freak out and be like, yes, that was amazing, because like, that's how I feel about it. And I feel like, because I acknowledge the rightnesses so often, and they don't really believe me, like, it was like mind-blowingly awesome.
I feel bad because whenever I step in, I'm someone who like all of my emotions are very evident, and like, I mean, I think there are recordings of me covering group classes and I'm literally jumping up and down and like yelling, and like whoever our admin has been sometimes just like peeks in the door like, is everything okay? Like, why am I hearing yelling? It's true, it's really true. Yeah. Anyways, now that I've talked your ear off, if anyone wants to talk about anything else, I'm more than happy to. I won't keep you forever. Please take more treats. all of the treats. This was fun. I hope that this was helpful in some way. I hope it wasn't just me ranting. I could sort of talk about anything for days, so.
It's like the makings of like a binge-worthy Netflix drama.
Yeah.
Like a circle version of Violin. I'm like,
Oh my God!
put everyone in pause.
I've always thought a sitcom about an adult violin studio would be magnificent. Wouldn't it be so good?
Yeah.
I